Hello, today we are going to talk about how you can start working with your succubus. So, a lot of people ask me about succubuses, and I will just say that I channeled spirits for two of my clients earlier, and I will also talk about curses and other things. So, if you want to work with succubuses in general, you have to understand that those are spirits who feed off sexual energy, okay? So they see your sexual energy as food in the same way you would see a snack. And so, in order to get that snack, they shapeshift and transform into the forms which are sexually arousing to us so they can drain our sexual energy and use it for their own purposes. Now, they can also teach you how to drain sexual energy of others and how to use your sexual energy for magical goals. But today we are going to talk about how to prepare for work with them. Okay, so you should go into the dark room without any light and raise the sacred space in the following manner. You should visualize the ball of light, a little ball of light, radiating above your head into the edges of the room you are in until you also visualize that ball of light radiating the rays and penetrating into the corners of the room you are in and creating a barrier of light. Now hold this visualization until you start feeling that light energy creating like a light barrier in the room. After you establish that, you should start chanting Adonai, 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 Adonai over and over again while visualizing light coming into the top of your head and filling you with light as you chant Adonai, 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 Adonai. And you should do the chanting in the dark room in the sacred space until you feel energized. And do this for about 20 days without skipping. Energize yourself every day. Once you learn how to energize, then what you should do is you should basically decide what type of qualities you want your succubus to have. Okay? So, working with succubus is really simple. You give them your sexual energy, and in return, they give you something. So, I'm going to explain what kind of genic queens give what kind of a succubi. So if you want a succubi for intellectual companionship, you choose succubi under Agrat. If you want a succubi to give you more of a dark spiritual empowerment, you choose succubi under Rashid. If you want a succubi to help you with money and physical pleasure, you choose Nama. And if you want a succubi to help you with like a more perverse aspects of sexuality and having dark visions and working with vampirism, you choose Lilith. And also Lilith, you choose succubus under Lilith if you wanna obtain what is known as dark wisdom in literature, but it's more of a darker version of spiritual knowledge which mainstream religion is propagating. So there is a difference between information you're gonna get from Aisha and Lilith. Lilith focuses on giving you spiritual information through perversion of sorts, while Aisha focuses on giving it to you through pain. So Aisha is more painful, but there are many dangers to this. So the danger number one is that obviously those spirits feed off our sexual energy. So there is always a danger of us overfeeding them and them starting to drain us. Now, how you avoid this is you build a relationship with their superior first. So if you want what is listed as succubuses of Nama, you summon Nama. If you want what is listed as succubuses of Lilith, you summon Lilith. If you want what is listed as succubuses of Agrat, you summon Agrat. It's a matter of your choice, right? So basically, after you decide, you build up a relationship with superior. We are going to give you like an example here. So let's say I want to work with Succubus under Lilith. Then I have to build a relationship with Lilith first. Now, what I have to do here is I have to close myself in the dark room, and then I have to be in the dark room for 3 days without exiting, and then I have to summon Lilith for 3 days. Well, at the end of 3 days in the dark room, calling Lilith in a sacred space, Lilith will show up. Now you can prepare sacred space in a manner I described in this video, or you can use other method, it doesn't matter. You have to be closed in the dark room for 3 days, and you have to call Lilith for 3 days. What methods you use to call her? You can use traditional demonic hands, you can use divine names, you can use Barhatia, whatever you want to use, right? Because I'm kind of giving you the framework here. You have to be in the dark room for 3 days in the sacred space, and you have to call them for 3 days without exiting the room and without turning on the light. Those are specific requirements. At the end of day 3, you will see her to the best of your ability, and you will be able to partially communicate. And when she appears at the end of day 3, in a really physical sense, you will give her your petition to obtain a succubus or a companion, and you will list your set of requests for a succubus companion, and then she will literally assign you a succubus and you will be able to see it. This is the most effective way of working with succubuses I found so far, and the way of making a contract with any of those queens after 3 days of seclusion in darkness is the most potent one. I made a lot of agreements this way. I made a lot of requests this way, and all of them materialized, all of them manifested. Now, I wanna basically talk about something which can really easily happen to you if you work with a succubus. That is negative energy overload, right? So what it means is you do spiritual practices, especially with negative energy, and you absorb too much, and then what happens is your mind breaks down. You basically go temporarily or permanently insane, or your body starts malfunctioning. Now, since I am like working with a lot of people and doing a lot of things myself, with positive and negative energy, you can, for example, repeat names of Allah too, or Christian prayers, and you can absorb too much energy and you can go crazy. But the difference between absorbing, for example, the energy of the angels and the divine names or the energy of the darker jinn is that the energy of the angels and divine names is by nature life nourishing. So what happens is, yes, you can get overloaded with positive energy too, but it's easier for your brain to recover from positive energy overload than it is from negative energy overload. negative energy overload tends to be much more destructive and much more long-term negative in a form of its consequences than positive energy overload. When you have negative energy overload, majority of people who have real negative energy overload never recover. This is why I recommend 1 to 2 months period of basically chanting divine names, mastering sacred space, and replenishing before you go into the dark room and call to make a contract for a succubus. What also needs to be done is you need to be really physically active, and you need to be physically strong as much as you can in order to basically withstand the pressure of the experience of Lilith actually showing up in a physical form. For those of you who never have physically seen spirits, what I can say is that witnessing physical manifestations of spirits is really difficult and dramatic, no matter what spirits are we talking about. Our senses are simply not designed for such an experience, and that kind of an experience requires a form of extremism. It requires an extreme. It requires necessity of a lot of dedication to the craft and enormous amount of time and energy. So, okay, let's say that you don't want to make a contract with Lilith, and you don't want to isolate yourself for 3 days in darkness to summon Lilith to make a contract, right? And I need to point out that the minimum amount of time necessary to create a really strong contact is like 3 days in the dark room. But the recommended period is around 9 days to 12 days. So in the dark room, you eat and drink only small amounts of food and water. And you are basically in the dark room calling spirits all day without any light. And after 3 to 9 days of that, the spirit will show up physically. After you have done preparation with replenishment and the divine names and mastery of that. Now, let's say that you don't want to make a contract in this manner. What is the alternative? So, alternative is you can pay somebody to conjure your spirit and assign you a succubus, like me, or you can reach out to any of the genic queens yourself. I listed, and you can summon them not to physical materialization, but to basically just energetic manifestation, which is you cool them a little bit and you feel their energy. And then you tell them to assign you a succubus. The thing is, that link will not be as strong than if you contract Lilith yourself. Now, let's say that I contract Lilith for you, right? So let's say I contract Lilith for you and I give you a sigil of your succubus and the chant of your succubus, right? Let's say that I do that. And let's say that you get the sigil and a chant. Well, you still have to close yourself in the dark room with that succubus to build a relationship. So, in order to build up a relationship with the succubus, you have to have a name of a succubus, a chant of a succubus, a sigil of a succubus, and you have to be in the dark room. You have to raise the sacred space. And you have to have a small brass vessel, like a small brass cup, okay? And then you have to start chanting to your succubus in the darkness, in the sacred space. After like day or two of chanting in the dark room, the succubus will show up in a physical form. Then you have to tell a succubus to bind himself to the brass vessel, to house himself within a vessel. and the succubus will do that. Um, and then you need to give the favorite offerings of that succubus every day or every few days into that vessel in order to build up a connection. What you are essentially doing there is you are creating a place where that succubus will reside. You are essentially building up a relationship with that being uh, by housing it there and giving it what it likes. Now, if you contract me to assist you with succubus stuff, I will tell you what you need to give to the succubus in the brass vessel. But generally, they will also tell you if you are willing to contract the superior first. So if you contract the superior first, the superior will tell you what the assigned succubus likes. But in the case of somebody else doing it for you, then whoever is doing it for you have to tell you what you need to give to them and what kind of things they like. And I already kind of gave you a lot of instructions on how to work with the succubi. What is really important with finding a succubi for people is you need to point out that you don't want succubi to be jealous and you don't want succubi to be aggressive and violent towards you specifically. Because a lot of people buy random succubi on the internet and it basically ruins their life. It can be a really destructive thing to have a rogue, violent succubi you buy off the internet bound to a random object. I have heard a lot of horror stories in the occult community. Recently I had a case of a guy who kind of went insane from that, and I couldn't help him. I tried, but I couldn't. It was a really difficult case. And the dude basically ruined himself by buying a random succubus of the internet. He absolutely ruined his life. The spirit brought havoc upon him. It was terrible. And I have seen a lot of those cases over the years. So please contact the superior first if you want any kind of succubus work. And please, if you can't do a elaborate process to contract the superior, contact somebody who can do it for you. Because what is really important is that you understand that this is dangerous and this needs to be taken seriously. But if succubus is regularly taken care of, if things are regularly given into the brass vessel, and if you have a contract with the superior first, work with the succubus can be extremely beneficial in any of the areas I listed in the beginning of the video. Monetarily, emotionally, financially, in any other regard. But obviously, I am obligated to point out the dangers and to tell you how to avoid them. The best way to avoid them is to replenish every day energetically by the methods I provided earlier. Make a contract with a superior first, or find somebody who will give you a sigil and a chant of the succubus and guide you through the process of calling them during the spiritual retreat. What needs to be understood is that, if you wanna, for example, get the succubus for money, don't go for Reshet, right? Go for Nama. You need to find the type of succubus which is actually sufficient to your needs. A lot of people, they summon Lilith and they just give Lilith a petition to find them a succubus, and then you have a horror story. The reason why you have a horror story is because Lilith is basically a plague storm, violent spirit really violent. Yeah, she's really knowledgeable and powerful, but she's also really violent. And she doesn't necessarily directly correlate to monetary gain unless you are a prostitute, right? So Lilith is a patron of prostitution as a profession, but she doesn't necessarily correlate to monetary gain. If you want to do monetary magic, the better choice for it is Nama, right? So basically, what happens here is people just contract Lilith for any kind of succubi work, and they don't even summon Lilith to physical materialization. They just write a letter and they petition Lilith to send them a succubi. And then Lilith sends something, and because they can't communicate with that thing, they don't know how to approach that, it really quickly turns into a horror story. So it's not a game. Please, you know, choose Succubus and the superior of the Succubus according to your needs. Don't petition Lilith for everything, because maybe Lilith is not the type of a Succubus you want in your life. Maybe you want somebody under Nama, somebody under Ashat, somebody under Agrat. Maybe you want something tantric related to Hinduism, like somebody under Rakshasi Lankini, right? Maybe you want some entity which is related to a different thing, right? So, what one really common mistake people make is they just petition Lilith for everything succubi related, which is one of the worst ideas you can have. Because first and foremost, Lilith is not what people claim she is. She's not benevolent motherly figure to the god girls at your school department. It's an ancient storm, plague, erotic spirit of chaos who can give you an enormous amount of information, but she can be protective. But the thing is, that's not an energy which is necessarily suitable for everyone. So I recently had a person who messaged me that he wants Succubus. We already started the work. And my message to that person is to go Nama route, because what he wants is Nama related. I wouldn't involve Lilith in this case. And also, no matter what I give you, what chants, what sigils, what energy, what you need to do is you need to still isolate with that Succubus and chant for a few days for Succubus to physically materialize in front of you so you can truly have a relationship you need. What is also important about Succubi, there is one thing I have to mention, is that Succubi are not having a permanent shape. They are shapeshifters. In other words, they can take any of the shape you want them to take so that you are sexually aroused. Okay? So, people send me a bunch of descriptions, like, I want Succubi to have big breasts and large back and blue eyes and green eyes and so and so. Well, it doesn't matter because they don't have a permanent shape. They can take any form. And because they can take any form, what you need to understand is that what you really need to worry about is what I want to use the relationship with this being for. Do I want to use it just for sexual gratification? Do I want to use it to have fun? Do I want to use it to become smarter, to become wiser, to become physically stronger? Do I want financial assistance? Do I want information about spiritual worlds? Do I want to learn certain types of magic and ritual practices? Do I want to learn different trance states? Do I want to learn to master my physiology? Do I want to learn more about psychology or geometry or geography or geology or any kind of a science? Those are things you need to put on paper when you are asking for succubus, you know. And by the way, there are billion ways in which work with a succubus can go wrong, which is some of the examples I gave earlier. If you were not given the exact superior of that succubus, the name of the sigil of that succubus, the characteristics of that succubus, planetary associations of that succubus, you know, if you were not given the exact protocol to call them to physical materialization, what will happen is there is a really large possibility that the entity will go rogue. So, indeed, one other example I am going to give is I have a really good friend of mine who visits me really often. He has a small brass vessel with a succubus in it, and his succubus is not sexual at all with him most of the time. The entity just teaches him magic and gives him visions about the future, like glimpses of the future, what's gonna happen, and protects him from physical danger. Uh, and that spirit is regularly given things within his brass vessel, and he doesn't even call it or summon it. He just puts the vessel on the table and talks to the entity. So if you do this properly, you don't even have to summon them. You don't have to have this, you know, a relationship of I am summoning so and so all the time, you know, and doing rituals. If you have this relationship, the spirit is simply there. You don't have to call it. But obviously, building that type of a relationship takes a lot of time and energy and practice. You need to call them to physical manifestation a few times, and then they need to agree to live within the vessel, and then you need to feed them within that vessel regularly, so they basically learn to live there. And it is demanding process, but it pays dividends. What you need to understand is that working with succubus spirits is not easy, and don't get into this if you are not willing to invest the effort. It's gonna take you 3 days to put it into the vessel, to make it live within the vessel, and then it's gonna take you around 2 months to strengthen the connection between the entity and the vessel, and then pretty much you roll your relationship with them on. That is basically something which you need to be aware of. If you want more content like this, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it, and support me on Patreon. If you want me to channel for you or work with spirits for you, message me through the contacts in description. Bye.